Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here today. You know, in the John Campea show that we do in the mornings, we save a little bit of time for some live questions, but here on Open Mic, live questions is all we do. So we got a whole bunch of stuff to get to. I see a bunch of you guys have already started sending in live questions, so let's dive right into it. And I'll let you guys know, too, I mentioned this morning on the John Campea show, I'm having a very difficult time speaking because a number of years ago, I was in one of my classes and I broke a tooth. No big deal. So a few years ago, I had a crown put on. And then earlier this morning, out of nowhere, the crown just fell out. So I look like a Canadian hockey player now. And it's really weird the way air is coming out of my mouth differently right now. And so I got a dentist appointment on Wednesday, and they're going to fix it then. Until now, you're going to see me struggling a little bit to talk because that damn crown fell out. Anyway, let's get to it and start up here. And we get going with the first live question today. And the first live question that comes to us from Caleb Bradford, who writes, did you ever hear about the action movie Bob Odenkirk was supposed to star in called Nobody? If so, has there been any news about it recently? It sounds very intriguing. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what Caleb's talking about, December, January, February, around that area, just a number of months ago, Bob Odenkirk, who is best known for Breaking Bad and the same character in Better Call Saul, and right now he's in Incredibles 2. This word came out that he had made a deal with the production company STX, and they did like Atomic Blonde, and STX did like the John Wick films and things like that. They now said they were doing like an action film with Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk was going to produce and star in it. And it was going to be called Nobody. And the idea, if I remember correctly, behind Nobody was that like he's just an average guy who, hospitalizes the brother of a drug kingpin who's now out for revenge. Okay, so it's one of those things. Anyway, so there has been February, March, April, May, June. 4 months since that announcement. No news really. But look, sometimes that may not mean anything. Because sometimes movies get announced and they don't actually start working on anything until like a year and a half later or 2 years later. Right? The one thing that's a little bit concerning is that if you go... Because I was looking at Bob Odenkirk's... IMDb page. Let me bring it up again just in case. I was looking at Bob Odenkirk's IMDb page for one of the Incredibles videos. And if I remember correctly, there was nothing on his IMDb page even about the film. So I'm over here now. And yeah, there's nothing about IMDb. So really, it could mean nothing. Could mean nothing at all. Like I said, sometimes it takes a year or longer for them to get the wheels in motion on these things. So let's revisit the issue in another 4 or 5 months and let's see if there's been any development. There hasn't been any development or any movement in 4 or 5 months, then maybe there's something there to be a little bit concerned about. Okay, let's move on. The next question comes to us from the number Thor, who writes, do you think we could get another Antonio Banderas Zorro movie, but this time with Zorro's son, Joaquin, in his early 20s, taking up the mantle of Zorro, leading into a new franchise for a new generation? I don't think so. I think any benefit there would have been to doing another Zorro movie, and let me just check this, into doing another Zorro movie in the same vein of the Antonio Banderas movies. Because the last one, The Legend of Zorro, came out in 2004, I want to say. 2005 is when The Legend of Zorro. So 13 years ago was the last one. And it made $142 million at the box office on a $75 million budget. That's not great. The original Zorro made $250 million at the world. So it took basically a 40% drop. And probably the second one isn't even all that profitable. So it's not like millions and millions and millions of people watch the Zorro movies and have been yearning for a continuation of the story. Now, could there be another Zorro movie? Sure, there could be another Zorro movie, but I think it would be a new incarnation of Zorro if another you want to take a chance. I just don't see from a business point of view, being any advantages to picking up the Antonio Banderas franchise. I just don't see what the advantage of it would be. I don't hear a lot of people clamoring for it. It's far too old, and even when the last one did come out, it didn't do all that well. So another Zorro movie, maybe. A continuation of the Antonio Banderas films, I doubt it at this point. Let's see. King of the Hills 34 writes, I'm rewatching Batman vs. Superman. Yes, it has its flaws, but I think it's very enjoyable. Sad that it only has a 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I guess that's a subjectivity film. Yeah, I'm one of the people that I like Batman vs. Superman as well. It has its issues, and it's one of those films where I like it, but I can totally see why other people don't. Like you said, King of the Hills, it definitely has its issues. And it's going to work for some of us more than it'll work for others, so that's obvious. Did it deserve a 27%? I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the 27% that liked it. It means a little bit more than 1 out of every 4 critics liked it, a little bit less than 3 out of every 4 didn't. And honestly, it's the type of film that, yeah, I could see that. But hey, it is what it is. There are people who like it. I'm one of them. You're one of them. There's a lot of people who didn't. That's totally fine. And, we move forward. And like you said, that's the subjectivity of film. Here's the problem, though. The issue is not, there's some people who want to blame the critics. Well, no, the critics just say whether they like a movie or not. That's it. Now, there are a whole bunch of critics that liked it. Like I said, 27%, which is not a tiny number, 27% of the film critics out there liked the movie. That's a minority, but hey, it means there's a bunch of critics that did like it, a bigger amount of critics that didn't. The problem is, even though I'm one of the critics who like it, even I will say, Warner Brothers should have made a better movie. If they wanted more people to get on board with it, they should have made it better. It was good enough for me to like it. It hit me in the right way. Hit a bunch of people in the right way, but not enough, and that's the problem. Let's see. The Number Thor writes, best Tupac movie. I love Juice. Your thoughts? I don't know that there was any Tupac movie, honestly, that I love. Juice was definitely one of the better ones. Above the Rim. Was it called Above the Rim? Hold on a second. Now I got to look it up. For some reason now I'm thinking I've got the name wrong. It is Above the Rim, isn't it? No, I was right. It's Above the Rim. So Above the Rim, I also thought was okay. Bullet, I thought was terrible. I'm trying to remember some other Tupac movies. Tupac was a great artist. Tupac was not a great actor. Let's just put it that way. Great artist, not necessarily a great actor. But, I didn't mind Juice. I actually thought Juice was okay. With the DJ and all that kind of stuff. What were the characters' names? There was Q. I remember Q was like the main, he was the DJ character. Tupac played Bishop. I'm trying to remember what the other two dudes' names were. I'm trying to remember the other names of the other two. I think Omar Epps starred in that too, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway. But yeah, I'd say, I'll agree with you, Number Thor. I'll go Juice is my favorite one. Nobody, no one writes, love the World of Warcraft videos, 5 times better than just watching you talk. Greatly respect the way you give your opinion. Unlike some pop film pundits, thinking opinion is fact. Well, I mean, look, it's tons of movie fans. It's not just critics, it's a lot of us. And here's the thing too. I think there's a lot of people who don't think their opinion is fact. It's just that maybe it sounds like they do, when really they really don't. And I think we just got to learn how to interpret it a little bit. Because, look, some people get tired of hearing me say, just my opinion, from my perspective. That's just how I see it. Like a lot of people get tired of hearing me say that, and I get it. And it is redundant. But I find, when I don't keep saying that over and over again, I get a bunch of people who will say to me, you think your opinion is the only right? I said, no, I never said that. So I get hypersensitive to making sure I always say, to me, just my opinion, blah, blah. Like really, it should go without saying that I should be able to say a blanket statement. Look, everything I say in the show is just my opinion. And then I should just be able to talk normal. But I find when I just talk normal, then people want to jump up and down and say, you think your opinion is facts? Like, nah. So now I kind of have to over-repeat myself with the whole, me personally, just from my perspective, it's only my opinion. That's just the way I see it. Well, I got to keep throwing that in there to make sure people understand. Look, we're just talking about opinions here. All film is subjective, but this is the way I see it. So I do kind of wish I could just say at the beginning of the show, look, whatever I say in this video, unless I specifically say this is a provable fact, whatever I say in this video, just assume it's just coming from my own perspective. But it is that way. And you know what's funny? For those of you who don't know something about the World of Warcraft, I've been back into playing World of Warcraft, right? So some people asked me to stream it, so I was streaming it on the channel. And I thought, you know what? Instead of just streaming me playing Warcraft, why don't we chat movies and talk about movies and stuff while I'm playing Warcraft, right? And I've been doing that. Now, not everybody loves those videos because not everybody's into video games or wants to watch somebody play Warcraft. That's great. So what I decided to do, last night I tried an experiment where I took it over and started playing on Twitch instead. But I got a lot of emails from people saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate that you did it on Twitch, but I'm a subscriber to your YouTube channel. I would rather you do it on the YouTube channel. So I'm still trying to decide where to play a game. And not just Warcraft, like other video games too that I'm going to start playing here in a bit as the new games are coming out. You know, all excited from the E3 announcements and everything. So I'm still trying to decide whether or not to play on Twitch or play here on my YouTube channel. I'm still trying to figure that out. If you've got a recommendation, let me know what you think. Okay. But thank you for the comment, Nobody No One. I appreciate that. Number Thor writes, thoughts on Rutger Hauer, great actor in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Rutger Hauer is a better actor than... I mean, he wasn't in enough... He should have been in more great movies, you know what I mean? But obviously when people think Rutger Hauer, they think Blade Runner. Lady Hawk. I mean, maybe a lot of you guys don't think Lady Hawk. I think Lady Hawk with Rutger Hauer. He's been in a bunch of... There was this one he did, like, Old Man with a Shotgun, some crazy, like, indie, kind of raw movie that got put out, like, 4 or 5 years ago that got a lot of attention. It's in Sin City. He's done a lot of great work. He's a really good actor. Actually, there was an era, going back to the 1990s, when the X-Men hadn't come out yet. And everybody was still doing their fan castings. What would be the perfect X-Men lineup? And I always thought Rutger Hauer would be a great Magneto. I always thought, like back in the 90s, I always thought Rutger Hauer would be a great Magneto. I stand by that too. I still to this day thought he would have made a fantastic Magneto. Okay, Manuel Fernandez writes, choose one to watch whenever you want, one to still exist, but you're the only one who can watch it, and one to completely erase from existence. Terminator 2, Aliens, and Last Crusade. That's a Sophie's choice, because those are all great films. All right. All right. The one that doesn't exist is Aliens 2. The one I can watch whenever I want is Last Crusade, and the one that only I get to watch is Terminator 2. There you go. Look, the bottom line with a question like that, there is no right answer. There's no right answer, because those are 3 amazing films. Last Crusade, of course, is my favorite Indiana Jones film. So, yeah, there's no right answer there. No wrong answer, but no right answer either. No matter which one you say to erase from existence, there are going to be people that get mad and scream at the computer at me, right? So, no wrong answer, no right answer. So I will go disappear Aliens, although that hurts. Watch anytime I want Last Crusade. One that only I can watch is Terminator 2, so I'll go with that one. ZOMG Ruler writes, Emmerich said art is better critiqued 20 years later. I mean, there's merit to saying that. But the drawback with saying something like that is that there's an argument to be made that art has to partially be interpreted in the cultural context of which it's a product of. There is an argument to be made that art should be looked at also through a lens. There's several lenses we should look at art through, but there is an argument to be made that one of the lenses we should look at art through is the lens of the current cultural context. And I'm not saying that's a be-all, end-all statement, but I think there's merit to that suggestion. I think there's merit to that argument. So I think he's not wrong in saying there is some art that is better critiqued 20 years later, but then again, I think there's a bunch of art that is best critiqued in the moment. Because it is a child of its culture and circumstances of the time. So I think there's a little bit of a mixture between the two, to be honest with you. Jay Bling writes, Ant-Man and the Wasp screening and embargo date. Well, I can tell you both, I think. Ant-Man and the Wasp I'm seeing it this Friday. So there's that. I am screening Ant-Man and the Wasp this Friday. And I'm looking at my invitation right now to go to the screening. And you know what? There's no list of an embargo date. No listing of an embargo date. So if there is an embargo date, they haven't told us yet. Which is fine because none of us see it till Friday anyway. If there's no embargo date, then this Friday. This Friday is when I'll be putting up my review. Latest would be Saturday morning. But there might be one or two screenings before the screening on Friday, but I am going to a screening on Friday. So at the very minimum, I'll be able to kind of tweet out my initial reactions of Ant-Man this Friday. As far as the full embargo date, to be determined. I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear. Okay, let's move on here. Hector Jeter writes, got my I read Aquaman there for a second. Got my Ant-Man tickets Thursday night at Prime. Nice. One thing I don't like about getting advanced reserve seats is that I love going with a group of friends, but I'm the one buying all the tickets at once. Well, see, but there's a really good, the new technology. Oh, I don't have my phone here. I should have my phone here. Anyway, there's great new ticketing, like ways to do ticketing. Yes, you have to buy tickets all you want, but there's an app called the Cash App. Okay, it's called the Cash App. It's by Square, and Square is the company that makes those attachments to your phones that you can run credit cards on your phone. Anyway, I believe it's by the same company, and it's like Venmo. I know a bunch of people use Venmo. Personally, I think the Cash App is better than Venmo, but it's fine. Like these apps have saved me because one of the things I used to hate the most is going out to lunch with a group of friends and then always figuring out the bill. And everybody putting in 8 credit cards, and now the poor waiter and waitress has to do all the math and blah, blah, blah. And saying, you know what? Here, I'll put on my card. Now you, Bob, cash me $7. Dennis, cash me $13. So-and-so, cash me $9. Blah, blah, blah. And then everybody just cashes you the money. It's all simple. It's an easy way to do. And also, you know what? I also think Fandango might have introduced, I think it was Fandango, where you can buy tickets on Fandango, and then it gives you the option to, split the cost with your friends, and there's a way to actually send like bills to your friends to pay you back or something like that. I can't remember, but the Cash App makes it really simple. So I'm in the same boat. Usually when a bunch of friends of mine and I are going to go to an opening night movie, I'm the one who buys all the tickets. But then it's simple. I just simply send a Cash App request to all my friends. Hey, the tickets cost $12.75. All right, one $12.75 to Soul, one to Ryan, one to Ray, whatever. And then everybody just cashes me the money. It's super simple. Boom. And you don't have to track people down. You don't have to forget about it, blah, blah, blah. Simplest way to do it. So, yeah, start using those apps because they're very, very, very handy. Let's see. Chris Martin writes, double feature this Sunday. Won't you be my neighbor? And Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Hopefully it's better than a doubleheader feature you saw a few years ago with Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending. Well, it was Seventh Son, S-O-N, not S-U-N. Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending. Worst double feature I have ever seen in my life. That was horrible. I just remember sitting in the theater, and I think, who did I see? I think that it was me, John Schnepp, my buddy Soul, and Dennis. And I think it was the 4 of us that went to do the back-to-back double feature, Seventh Son, Jupiter Ascending. And I remember sitting in Jupiter Ascending, and I was audibly moaning, going, oh my God, this is so bad, saying it out loud in the theater. That movie was pure garbage. unadulterated, pure garbage. It was so bad that at the end of the night, I was like, I mean, Seventh Son wasn't good, but I guess it wasn't all that bad. I mean, Seventh Son was terrible. But Jupiter Ascending was so bad, it made Seventh Son feel endurable. You know, whereas maybe if I just watched Seventh Son on its own, I wouldn't have thought it was endurable. But watching Jupiter Ascending, that made Seventh Son feel like, okay, that wasn't so awful. That's how bad Jupiter Ascending was. Worst double feature I've ever seen. By far. By far, it was terrible. All right. Hector Jeter writes, are you still dreaming of eating credit cards? So yeah, I told this story the other day. I don't know why. Me and some friends ended up at some rich lady's house, and I do not know why, but in my dream, my friends are trying to distract the rich lady so I could break into her purse and eat her credit cards. I do not know why, but in my dream, it was very important that I get this woman's credit cards and that I eat them. To this day, I have no explanation. Like, none at all. No explanation in the world about why that's happening. So, anyway, if you guys will excuse me for a second, I have to run and grab my phone. I'm hearing it ring. I got to go check it out, only because my mom's in the hospital. Give me 1 second. I'll be back in just 1 minute. All right. And I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. It's just one of those things. As you guys know, my mom is in the hospital right now. Everything is fine, but I am paranoid. So that's why I was freaked out a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, why is my phone not here? I keep my phone with me at all times now. You guys know, normally I don't have my phone here beside me while I'm doing the show normally, but ever since my mom's been in the hospital, I just need to keep my phone beside me at all times because I panic. Anyway. Okay, I just sprinted up 2 flights of stairs. Okay, so that was my dream about credit cards. Again, thank you for indulging me with that short break, guys. Let's see. Kevin Brown writes, have you got to check out The Ranch on Netflix yet? Very dark comedy. It's practically 3/4 of the cast of that 70s show. Surprise for a rancher/farmer Western. It has a pleasant kick of humor to it. I never did. It never looked appealing to me. And isn't that the one that just had some of the controversy because one of the cast members was in a sexual assault situation or something like that? I cannot remember, but yeah, no, I never did watch it. It never looked like a show that would appeal to me. Like I said, there are very, very few shows. I don't actually watch a lot of television because I have very little time. So there's a lot of shows on TV I don't watch. I got to admit, The Ranch was never one that really appealed to me. It's never one that made me go, oh, I should watch that. Like, it just never seemed to stand out to me. But hey, if more people tell me that it's worth watching, maybe I'll give it a shot at some point. ZOMG Ruler writes, was watching a review of Oasis's Be Here Now. When it first came out, it got praised, but years later slammed. Why is the perception of art change over time? Well, I'm not heavy into the music scene, so I can't really offer a lot of commentary on that. As far as why does perception of art change over time? Well, it's like I was saying a little bit earlier. A lot of times we judge art in the climate of the current cultural context, right? So the climate of our current cultural context changes over time. And so sometimes we can look at a piece of art through a different climate and a different cultural context than when that art came out, and we see it differently. I mean, so again, I can't speak to the specific situation of that particular album from Oasis, but that's just a general thought of mine. Ben Rayner writes, which should I binge, Gifted or Legion? Gifted. Here's what I'll say. I believe season 1 of Legion is better than season 1 of Gifted. They're both good, but I think season 1 of Legion is better. The problem is season 2, in my opinion, there I go again, season 2 of Legion, in my opinion, has been self-indulgent dreck. Just unbearable. I've tried so hard to keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. Then finally around episode 6 or 7, I said, I give up. I just waving the white flag. I surrender. I can't watch this anymore. It just felt like the whole show was an exercise in navel gazing. Really self-indulgent navel. I just hated it. Hated season 2. Now, The Gifted has not had a season 2, but I still have a lot of hope for Gifted season 2. And I thought the first season was really good. Now, granted, take it with a grain of salt. One of Anne's friends is one of the stars of the show. So there's that. So keep that in mind. So there is a little bit of bias there automatically. But honestly, I thought The Gifted was really quite good as a different look at the whole X-Men universe. It's out of continuity with the movie, so don't worry about the movies or anything like that. But it's really good. But again, take anything I say about with a grain of salt that, one of Anne's friends is in the movie. Jamie Chung's in it. So obviously I have a little bit of bias towards it. But even though I think season 1 of Legion is better than season 1 of Gifted, I think you go with Gifted because you have the potential to roll into a season 2 that's also enjoyable, where season 2 of Legion I just think has been terrible, to be honest. But by all means, when you get a chance, watch Legion season 1, because Legion season 1, the first episode's terrible in my opinion, but then you get past the first episode and it gets really good. So give it a shot too when you get a chance. All right, let's move on here. Number Thor writes, thoughts on the Benicio del Toro Wolfman movie. I liked it. I thought the werewolf fight at the end was great. Your thoughts? And I know we will never get one, but would love a sequel. Yeah, you're right. We're never going to get one. I don't know. I think that at best, it's been a while since I've watched it. And Anthony Hopkins was in that too, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Hold on a second. Wolfman, IMDb. I'm almost, because Anthony Hopkins played his dad, didn't he? Or am I thinking of something? No, it was Anthony Hopkins. Okay. And Emily Blunt was in it. And okay, so yeah, it was okay. I know a lot of people didn't like it. Yeah, not one that stands out to me. I think I saw it twice, like the year it came out, which we're talking like close to 13 years ago. I saw it like twice when it came out, and I don't think I liked it either time really. I don't remember hating it, but I don't remember liking it all that much. I am curious. Hold on a second. It didn't come out in 2005. It came out in 2010. So I'm just curious, what did it do at the box office? Not great. Worldwide, it only made $61 million in the U.S. Worldwide, it made $139 million on a $150 million budget. $150 million budget in 2010. That was an expensive movie. And it lost them tons of money. So you're right. They'll never do a sequel. And honestly, I don't remember enjoying it very much. Again, it's hard for me to say exactly. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I don't remember liking it very much at all, to be honest with you. Dakota Barber writes, after seeing Incredibles 2, my favorite movies so far this year are 1, Infinity War, 2, Deadpool 2, 3, Incredibles, 4, A Quiet Place, 5, Thoroughbreds, and 6, Ready Player One. It's been a good year. There have been some really solid films this year. For me, still firmly in number 1 is Quiet Place. Quiet Place to me, at any rate, is clearly the best movie of the year. I think my number 2 might be Incredibles. It's either Incredibles or Deadpool 2. Hard for me to... So it's one of those two. Then would probably be Thoroughbreds. Then probably Infinity War. And then probably Ready Player One. And, I might have to throw the Mr. Rogers documentary in there somewhere too. But look, long and short of it is, there's been some really good films this year. And on top of that, there's a couple films that I still have. I still got to see Upgrade. Still have to see Upgrade. So that might get up there as well. But yeah, for me, it's actually pretty clear to me. Again, this is just all film subjective, that A Quiet Place is the best film of the year. Let's see. Dark Impact writes, hey, John, was watching Close Encounters last night. It's still amazing. It is still amazing. People forget that it's a 40-year-old movie like Star Wars. In my opinion, I think it's one of Spielberg's best and hardly talked about movies. Well, I don't know that it's hardly talked about. I actually hear Close Encounters mentioned a lot of times. Ba, 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 ba. I mean, I think it's mentioned an awful lot. There's still movies that parody, like people making food going, this means something. You know, I think there's still a lot of pop culture references to it. I don't know if it's ignored now. Does it get the attention and talked about on the same level that some of other classic film or Spielberg's work do? No, maybe not, but I mean, maybe people still talk about Jaws a little bit more than Close Encounters and things like that, but it is remarkable. And it's really good science fiction. And it's a great what if. And to me, that moment, I mean, maybe today, remember we were just talking about how we look at art through the lens of the climate or the current cultural context. Maybe somebody watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind for the first time today may not have the same impact because we've had so many movies mimic a lot of the themes of Close Encounters. But I remember, I mean, it was a little before my time, you know, movie theater going age and stuff like that. But I remember the first time I saw Close Encounters. It was years later, and I think it was on Laserdisc. My dad rented. I used to love my dad's bowling league for two reasons. Number one, I would go with my dad to bowling league because the bowling alley had video games in it. We'd show up, my dad would give me like $3 worth of quarters, and I'd be busy all night playing video games. The other thing I loved about it is that at the bowling alley, there was a I can't remember if it was Laserdiscs or VHS, but there were video players for rent. And what my dad would do is he would just rent. We didn't have a VCR or a Laserdisc player. My dad would rent one for a week, and we'd get a couple of movies. Anyway, believe that was the first way I saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Anyway, I remember that ending when the alien ship shows up. Spoiler alert. When the alien ship shows up, that sense where we talk about that sense of awe and wonder. It's hard to get that sense of awe and wonder anymore because we're so desensitized to a lot of the flamboyant stuff they do in films. But watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind as a little kid, I just remember going, whoa, like just being blown away by it. So, yeah, and maybe it's not talked about as much as some of other Spielberg's work, but I still find it's referenced and discussed a good amount too. But I'm glad you had a chance to watch that last night, Darth. All right. Gabe Schembarger writes, am I the only person to watch Counterpart? Who watched Counterpart? You know what? To go to your argument, I don't even know what movie we're talking about. Hold on a second. Which one was Counterpart? Oh, the show. Okay, with J.K. Simmons. I want to watch that show. The problem is, it's on Stars. The problem is it's on Stars, and I don't have Stars. So, I mean, I don't have Stars, so I can't watch it. I remember being completely intrigued by this alternate dimension idea, and obviously because J.K. Simmons is in it. Totally intrigued to watch the show. But I don't have Stars, and I'm not about to subscribe to Stars just to get the one show. So I wanted to see it. I guess I'll have to wait for it to come out on Netflix or something. Guys, in the chat board, let me know if it has hit Netflix or anything like that, because I don't think it has yet. But once it's on a streaming service, I can watch it. I plan on watching it. But I don't have Stars, so yeah, I haven't seen it yet. But and you're right. You know what? I don't know a lot of people who have. So that goes right to your comment, Gabe. That I don't know. I'm sure you're not the only person who's watched it. I want to see it, but I've just never had the ability to watch it. Let's see. Dirk Diggler writes, hey, John, I'm happy that your mom's surgery was successful. Thank you so much, Dirk. Toby Emmerich, in a recent article, spoke about Rotten Tomatoes and social media. Why was Wonder Woman, in my honest opinion, better by critics and audiences over the other DC films? Okay, Dirk, you're jumping topics here. Okay, so Toby Emmerich did a recent article about Rotten Tomatoes and social media. Okay. Then you go on to talk about Wonder Woman. So I'm not quite sure how these two are connected, but I'm guessing you mean Wonder Woman. In my honest opinion, are you asking me why Wonder Woman, in your opinion, was better than the other DC films? Why was Wonder Woman, in my honest opinion, better? I'm trying here, Dirk. Hold on a second. Why was Wonder Woman, in my honest opinion, better by critics and audiences over other films? I'm gonna take your "in my honest opinion" out and read it. Why was Wonder Woman better by critics and audiences over other DC films? It just struck other people the right way. I mean, look, there's no formulaic, measurable answer to that question. Film is subjective. I think there's a couple of things. Number one, Patty Jenkins kept the story simple. It's a simple story. That doesn't mean it's plain. Some people think complex is automatically better than simple. Not true. Not true. One of my top favorite flavors of ice cream to this day is a good vanilla ice cream. There's bad vanilla ice cream, but you put a good vanilla ice cream together, it is one of the most enjoyable things in this world. It's a simple ice cream, but it's magnificent. Complex is not necessarily better. Complex can be better than simple, but simple can also be better than complex. Wonder Woman, they kept it very simple. It was a fish out of water story. They had a terrific performance by Chris Pine. And it was just kind of, first of all, fish out of water stories are always really good when you can have a real innocence in your central character. And there was a really good innocence about the Wonder Woman Diana character in a very simple, straightforward kind of movie. They kept a lot of the focus on the relationship between Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. They had really enjoyable action. They didn't overdo the humor too much, but they had really good humor when it worked. I think all those things kind of combined to making it quite an enjoyable experience for a lot of people. So other than that, we're just getting into the whole discussion of the subjectivity of film again. So Dirk, why was Wonder Woman better received by critics and audiences over other DC films? It was just a better movie. I mean, understanding the pure subjectivity of film, but to more people, it was just a better movie. Again, I feel like I want to give a better answer, but I'm having a very difficult time understanding the specifics of the question. So I apologize. Do me a favor, Dirk, send me an email. Flesh it out a little bit more. Send me an email to john@thejohncampeashow.com, just so I can get a better overall picture of what it was specifically you were trying to ask there. Let's see. Oh, sorry, we had a little bit of a jump. Okay, here we go. Dakota Barber writes, I appreciate Cap even more after Infinity War. To me, that movie solidified why he's such a great character. MCU has handled characters and cast them so well. They really have. The only time, I don't know that they've really nailed the casting. Because they absolutely nailed the casting with Iron Man. They totally nailed the casting. Even though a lot of people doubted it at first, they totally nailed the casting with Captain America. They totally nailed the casting with Thor. They've totally nailed the casting with Black Widow. They totally nailed the casting. I mean, it's across the board. The one little question mark to me, and it's not whether or not this actress is a great actress. This actress is clearly a great actress. But I've never really felt like she was a great fit for the character, and that's Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. The character is great. The actress is clearly a great actress. But for whatever reason, to me, it's never felt like quite the right fit. But other than that, I'm really hard-pressed to think of any other castings in MCU movies where they didn't just really nail the casting. You know what I mean? They do a really good job, and I agree with you. Infinity War just further solidifies why Captain America, to me, is my favorite character in the MCU. Not my favorite comic book character, but by far my favorite character in the MCU. The way they've written that character, the consistency, the development and consistency, and the performance brought to it by Chris Evans has made Captain America easily my favorite character in the MCU. Absolutely love him in that. And Infinity War just propelled that even more. Andrew Odette writes, which director today has the best public persona? Oh, probably Steven Spielberg. Yeah, Steven Spielberg is like the Hollywood golden boy. He's beloved by everybody, and he's the best filmmaker of all time. Now, look, most directors, the average filmgoer couldn't tell you who that director is. You get either of the John Wick directors, Leach or the other guy, and you put them in front of, no one's going to know who they are. You have Antoine Fuqua come and sit down at Denny's, and most people won't even know who he is. Yeah, I mean, I think the same can be said of most of directors today. So you're talking about public persona. Most public average movie-going announcers don't even know what directors look like. There's a few exceptions. Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, but by far, more than any of them, Steven Spielberg. And people love Steven Spielberg. And I think he's probably the director with the best public persona today. Let's see. Zach Kaplan writes, will recent allegations on Stallone affect Creed 2? Good question, man. I don't know. I really don't at this point. You know what's really funny is that now that you mention it, the story has practically disappeared already. Now, for those of you who don't know, a number of days ago, there is an investigation going on over alleged sex crimes. Something that happened in the 1990s. I'm reading this off the website right now. The alleged incident, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office is reviewing a sex crime against Sylvester Stallone. The alleged incident at the center of the case took place in the 1990s, but he failed. They weren't giving out any details about the accusations. Stallone's denying the accusations and it's being handled. But honestly, it kind of came up and I don't hear anybody talking about it. Now, there are two separate questions here, Zach. One is, should this have an effect on Creed? And will, and you're using the will question, will the recent allegations have an effect on Creed? The question of should is another answer. Will, I'm getting the feeling it won't have any effect on it. I'm just having the feeling it won't have any effect. A lot of it has to do with, like, this story just came up a couple days ago, and I think most people are already not even talking about it anymore. It did not make the rounds like a lot of other, these types of stories make the rounds. And so, in the question of will it have any effect, I'm having some doubts that it'll have any effect at all, to be honest with you. Again, now, we could get into the should discussion. That would be another discussion. But the will, I don't think it will. Right now, it looks like it won't, unless something huge develops out of it. Right now, it doesn't look like it will. All right. Murray Reich writes, Incredibles 2 had a blast. It was funny, great action, very heartwarming message. Villain not great, but I love how they focused more on the hero's aspect itself. Overall, left the theater with a huge smile. Dude, I was just buzzing with electricity after watching that. I was so entertained by Incredibles 2. And you're right. The villain is clearly the weakest part of the film, but you can also tell that's by design. I mentioned this the other day on one of the shows, is that Incredibles 2 kind of adopted the old Marvel, the old MCU philosophy when it came to villains. Villains aren't important. The villains are simply there, as particularly in Incredibles 2, to simply propel the story for the heroes. But the heroes are who the movie is about, right? It's not about the villain. They never make the villain the story. The villain is simply there as the plot device to move ahead. Now, for some movies, that's not the right way to go, but for others, it is. We saw the MCU have great success with that formula. They're changing it up now. They're making the villains a little bit more centric in their stories now than they were before. However, Incredibles seemed to adopt that philosophy and it worked great. That means not a great villain, but we didn't need the villain to be. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing about it. I would not want one more minute of screen time given to the villains in that movie. I wanted that movie to be about the Parr family. I wanted it to be about the Parrs, the Incredibles. That's who I wanted this movie to be about, and that's what they make the movie about. And that's one of the reasons why the thing is just so damn entertaining. So I'm glad you saw it, man. I'm glad you had a good time. If you haven't seen Incredibles 2 yet, guys, check it out. It's just so much damn fun. Murray follows it up with, just a correction, Incredibles 2. Oh, no, I understand what you mean, Murray. Murray writes, where does it rank in your top Pixar list? I don't know yet. I need more time to marinate on that. I'm always hesitant about ranking films when I first see them. Because I like to I can give a review of a film, but as far as ranking them and then comparing it to others, I like to let it digest a little bit more. Like, as of right now, I'm still not even sure whether I like the first Incredibles or this Incredibles more. So I'm not even at a place where I'm ready to rank just the two Incredibles movies, let alone figuring out where I rank it on the all-time Pixar list. So I simply can't answer that question right now. I need to give me a month. Give me a month to see the film 2 or 3 more times and to really sit on it for a while and let it digest and resonate a little bit more. The problem is, and this is a great problem to have, Pixar has made so many all-time great films. Whether you're talking about Incredibles, Ratatouille is a brutally underrated movie. Ratatouille is a masterpiece of a movie. Watch Ratatouille if you haven't watched that. You're talking about magnificent films like WALL-E. You're talking about films like Up. You're talking about films like the Toy Story films. You're talking about like the original Monsters, Inc. You're talking, Finding Nemo. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. It's crazy how good Pixar's made films. And there was a period of time, and I might be there again, that I said Pixar is not just the best animation studio house in the business. Pixar is the best movie studio in the business, period. Because I think there was a stretch of like 7 out of 9 years where the number 1 critically rated films of the year were Pixar films. What other studio can come close to saying that? None. It's crazy. So as far as ranking Incredibles with the other ones, give me a little bit of time to marinate on that a bit. The Interweb Show writes, Lou here and got Netflix question. I would love to hear you and Ann talk about toys that made us, seeing as she is Miss Hasbro. Or is that not no kosher? No, that's fine. Actually, every time, a lot of weekends, Ann and I will run out to her mom's house. Ann's mom and Ray and our buddy Ryan all live, because Ann is from Corona, California, which is about an hour drive from where we are here in Burbank. It's right beside another city called Riverside, California. Anyway, most weekends we go out there and we hang out there for a day or two almost every weekend. And that's where our dogs stay too. So sometimes we bring our dogs here to stay with us for a few days. Generally speaking, we're not supposed to have dogs in the place that we rent, so we don't have them here often. So we go to see them every weekend. Sometimes we bring them back here for a few days, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, almost every time we go back there and we're hanging out, we usually end up watching an episode or two of The Toys That Made Us. And I don't think enough people watch that show to justify me and Ann making a video, because nobody would watch that video. I mean, if people don't watch The Toys That Made Us, no one's going to watch our video. So probably not, but that is a show we enjoy watching. And by the way, watch the one they did on Lego. It's crazy. Like, what an empire this little company that made a little plastic brick and what they turned into. It's a great, and the ups and downs it went through. They were on the brink of bankruptcy, but it's an amazing story. Watch the one on Lego. If you don't watch any other one, the Star Wars toy one is really good too, obviously, but the Lego one, I was just fascinated by. So if you haven't checked that out yet, treat yourself, and watch that show, particularly the episode on the Lego stuff. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Sean Donahue writes, any chance we can get Harloff on Star Wars talk? No chance. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, actually, I was just the other day, I was just texting with Christian, as a matter of fact. And I'm in the process of, I'm trying to work out some Comic-Con passes for a couple of buddies of Christian's that he has in New York that wants to come down to San Diego, but obviously Comic-Con's all sold out. Because I have a panel, I get some free passes, but I'm trying to work out to see if I can get a few passes for a couple of Christian's buddies, all that kind of stuff. So I get along great with Christian. So don't interpret that. A lot of people say, well, because John won't go over there because he doesn't have any, that means they don't get along. No, I get along. Christian and I get along great. But I don't have, guests per se very often on here. And what I'm absolutely committed to is I want to make sure there's never any confusion whatsoever about me and the former place that I work. that I worked. And so, you're not going to see any crossover there. That's just a decision that I've made. So no, you're not going to see me doing stuff with people who used to work with me over there, as long as they still work there. It's just because it's just that line that I decided to draw right away. I don't want to make there be any ambiguity and confusion. Besides, what would be the point of having him on my show? He does his own one. If you want to hear Christian's great Star Wars insight, he's got a show. You go watch his show. He's incredibly insightful. He's great at that. There's no need to bring him over here. So no, you're never going to see that happen. Ray Robinson writes, Alison Brie's exact quote was, "I don't need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work about A Wrinkle in Time." No, again, you're taking that out of context. Look at her. You're trying to make it sound like she was saying it in a certain way, and she simply wasn't saying it in a certain way. You're taking the way she worded it, and you're putting your own interpretation on it. When you read the whole interview, she made it very, very clear. Remember how this is what gets frustrating to me. This is what's frustrating to me. Remember how a little bit earlier in this video, I had to say, I feel like every 10 seconds I have to say, for me personally, from my point of view, this is just my opinion, but I have to because people will take my words out of context if I don't say that every 5 minutes. If you read the whole interview, that's great, Ray, you're giving one quote. Read the whole frickin' interview. She makes it very, very, very clear. She stops several times, but look, the value of the traditional, even white male film critic, something like that, she makes it very clear. But if you want to cherry pick out one comment, and this is what I find a lot of people do, they cherry pick out one comment that makes it sound, just read the whole interview. Read the whole article. She makes it very clear. Her article is about the need to have more representation in the world of film critics. And she's completely right. We do. But then what some fragile people take that, she's saying, no. This statement, when you read the whole interview, you see it in the light that it was meant. She's simply highlighting the fact that she really would like to see, because one of the key things, now I saw Wrinkle in Time, I didn't think it was a good movie. It's not a good movie. It's a pretty bad movie from my point of view. But she was specific, when you read the entire interview, she's clearly talking about the need, because what she really wants, she wants a perspective, because you got this young girl in Wrinkle dealing with images about how she's viewed. There's even stuff about her hair, because a lot of young African-American girls deal with those issues, blah, blah, blah. And what Brie Larson was saying, I want to hear how a film critic who's not a standard white dude, how they would see that and interpret that. Read the whole interview. It is crazy how people with agendas, they survive. People with agendas survive off of cherry-picking isolated comments when taken out of context can be twisted to be read a certain way. When if you read the entire thing, you can see that's not what she was talking about. So, no, sorry, Ray, I completely reject that. That is not how she meant it. That is not what she said. That is not what the message she was trying to convey. And if you stop cherry picking out specific comments and read the entire thing, then maybe, the same thing happened. Kathleen Kennedy, who I've said I believe she needs to step down, but I believe she needs to step down from Lucasfilm because of the way she's managed directors, which I think is the most important job, and I think she's blown it, and the way she's not addressed the current schism in Star Wars fandom, lots of reasons. But context is king. A lot of people circulate these pictures of Kathleen Kennedy, right, in a The Force is Female t-shirt. What they don't want to talk about is put in context that The Force is Female was a Nike ad campaign that was just put together to promote the idea of female empowerment and stuff like that. And it was a Nike campaign that had these shirts, and she wore the shirts to support it. But then people take that picture, twist it out of context, and pretend like it's some sort of dogma. Context is everything, ladies and gentlemen. Context is everything. And if me, a white male film critic, understands what Brie Larson is talking about when I read the article, then there's no excuse in the world for everybody else to not get it. Because the way people are trying to twist it, I'm the victim of Brie Larson's comments. I'm the white male film critic. But if I can read her article and go, yeah, no, I totally see what she's saying. then there's no excuse you can't. This is another good reason why I always tell people dig into things. Don't just read a headline and go, oh my gosh, read it. Find out what the source is and then read the source to really find out what's being said and talked about. And again, there are very, very fragile people out there who are so desperate to play the victim. They're looking for somebody to say something mean. And if you read the entire Brie Larson article, she makes it very clear that she is not attacking any one group. She was simply emphasizing from her point of view the need to have other representation as well. And she's completely right about that. She's right about that. And I think she put herself perfectly. But again, if you want to go fishing and cherry pick out specific statements that were taken out without the context of everything else she said around it, then you can make it sound like anybody's saying anything. So, sorry, Ray Ray, I completely reject what it is you're saying. Read the whole thing and take it in the context in which it was clearly laid out. And again, if me, a white male film critic, can read it and not be offended by it because it's even clear to me exactly what it is she's saying, then there's no excuse that you can't understand what it is she's saying either. Nobody No One writes, one pop YouTube critic said there's proof Hereditary is bad. Oh, then that person doesn't know what they're talking about. All film's subjective. Ben Lorenowitz writes, soft place. Don't get me wrong. If that one YouTube critic doesn't like Hereditary, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly, if they watched it, didn't like it, and they express why they didn't like it, that's perfectly valid. Nothing wrong with that. Somebody who says there's proof Hereditary is bad, then that person doesn't understand the first thing about movies. So anyway, there's that. Ben Lorenowitz writes, soft place in my heart for the F word, yet it bothers me when movies telling a true story are full of profanity. Patriots Day. Is this true to life? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a 1800s history buff. I don't know. Like, sometimes I'll think about that sometimes. Like, I'll watch a movie that's set in a particular historical context. And like profanity's used, and I'll wonder, did they say that back then? But I simply just don't know. I don't know, like, what was when did the F-bomb start being used in historical society? I mean, I don't know. But I'm kind of like you in the sense that sometimes I hear like profanity like that drop and I'll go, did they use that language then? I just don't know. I just don't know, but it's an interesting question that gets brought up. Let's see. Cecil1304 writes, thanks for getting to my question on part 6 of the Infinity War discussion. It took a while to get through those. Obligatory, shut up and take my financial support quote. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you so much, Cecil1304. I appreciate that, and thank you for your patience. I know it took me a while to get through all. I could not believe how many comments and questions got sent in on that Infinity War thing, man. It was huge, and it did take me a while to get through it all. Thank you for your enduring patience as I worked through getting all those done. And yes, 6 parts. It was crazy, but thanks for your patience, man. I appreciate it. All right. Let's see. I don't think I'm going to get to all the questions today, guys, but don't worry. Whatever questions I don't get to that have been sent in, I will take them and use them in the next companion video. Okay, so keep your guys open for that. Last question of the day comes to us from Aaron Wright, who writes, recently watched Irreversible. Why are a lot of French films extremely violent, sexual, or weird? Perhaps I'm just watching the wrong French films. Again, I don't watch a lot of French films, but it's all art is a product of the environment in which it's created, right? One way or the other. And maybe certain cultures like in France, that's just big. Like, why are comic book movies so huge here? Well, currently in our current cultural climate, superheroes and comic book movies are a big thing. And so we see a lot of it. And maybe certain things hit different cultures in different ways at different times. So I can't really comment to it because I'm not an expert on French film. Now I'll do one more just because I didn't give a very good answer to that one. So Cameron Belgrade writes, hey, John, remember when we were excited because Ben Affleck was going to direct a Batman film? Good times. Those were good times. Those were good times. Good memories. Good times. Hey, remember when Ben Affleck was Batman? Good times. Good times. I mean, still a chance he might do one more. He's still, like, remember, he's got one film left on his contract. 50-50 chance I say that he still does one more film. And that might be the Flash movie, but we'll have to know. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here. And again, guys, I know there's a bunch of questions that are still left over, but don't worry. I'm going to take all those questions and I'll put them in the next companion video. Keep your eyes open for that. They will get answered. All right, guys. That will do it for me for today now. Thank you so much for joining me. I might play a little bit of Warcraft again a little bit later this evening. So if you feel like jumping on the channel and chatting a little bit more, we'll talk more movies or whatever as I'm playing Warcraft. By all means, come on by and join me for that. Okay, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, still with the Missing Tooth. So it's weird the way air comes out now where there wasn't air before. I'm finding it very hard to speak. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.